Namaste. Welcome to your introduction to Ilona Selke and Living from Vision. People want to know what I've done and where I've come from. And so I'd like to share with you some of my humble beginnings and where I've come to and what I've made possible through diligent exercises, working on myself. I started out just like anybody on planet Earth as a child, and I grew up. I tried to figure out the secret workings of the universe, and I had a vivid imagination. I wanted to read people's thoughts, and I wanted to manifest anything at magical will, just like the genie in my movies that I saw. I wanted to really figure out how she did it. So I set out how to observe what my thoughts did with my world and when things really happened. And do you know what I found out? Things happened when I didn't want them. Like the things I really didn't want, those are the ones I got. So I figured a law of the universe must be that whatever I didn't want, I got. And to prove my point, I tested it. One year, when I was about 10 years old, I decided to test God listening to me. And I said, "Dear God, I do not want a bike. Absolutely do not give me a bike because I don't want a bike." You know, like I don't want a bike. Now, by now, maybe you've already heard that what we resist persists, or the universe does not hear any no's. So, this was lesson number one. Although it worked, because for Christmas, guess what I got? A bicycle. And the universe indeed had not heard my no, because what I visualized every single moment when I said I don't want a bike was the bike. So watch your own thoughts. Watch how oftentimes you say, "Oh, how come I can't get this? How come it's this?" Turn it around. Imagine just for a moment the fulfillment rather than the lack. You know, it took me decades after reading books and realizing that what we tend to dwell in and on as humans are the problems. We love solving problems, so we love thinking and hearing about them so we can get busy shifting them into potentials and outcomes that we want. However, because we like the process of being busy with problems, we oftentimes prefer going in circles around and around about the problem. Now, instead of hanging out with problems, I've learned how to hang out with solutions. And it is a different sensation you have to practice to enjoy. Taking responsibility for you being the creator from the inside out is the first step. So I practiced those kinds of steps when I was 17, 18, 19 through books that I read. Be Here Now, the autobiography of a yogi. Books by Rudolf Steiner about how to develop your inner sight and your inner senses. Eventually I studied philosophy. I also practiced the light and sound teachings. I practiced meditation, and all the components taught me that what we think and focus on is what we get to see. So check for how many times in a day or in a week you wind up thinking about the sad outcome, the soap opera story, and ask yourself how the same film might look like if you were the hero, the superstar, and everything went exactly the way you wanted to. Now, when we think about successes, we will run into the very boundaries that hold us where we're at. What would happen if your wildest dreams came true? You can ask yourself that question when you encounter that boundary. But first of all, you have to set the vision at a greater distance. And automatically you will encounter the part of you that says, "But, you know, I'm supposed to be a good girl. I want to please my mom and dad. I want to always do what other people, I want to create harmony. I want to do what other people feel is right, because otherwise I create a lot of havoc and people don't like me." You know, realize what your fundamental fears are, where your fundamental visions are of what you want to create, and learn where your boundaries are. Boundaries we will have. Each and every step of our evolution will have a boundary. However, the boundary that is currently yours will give way to a greater boundary in the future when you start focusing on where you're at. So I did that, And actually, in the beginning, I was not very happy. I had met my husband when I was 17, and I loved him, and we loved each other, but things weren't exactly perfect. And although he was the person who bought all my spiritual books and got me involved in reading all of them, he didn't really want to have anything to do with it more than that. It's almost like the universe had sent me a good guardian that said, do this, do that. And when I was 21, I remember going to my spiritual training teacher at a center in Baltimore, Maryland, where meanwhile I had started studying philosophy to find out about God, because I figured that's the most important thing in my life. And I asked him the question of, how can I create a more harmonious, beautiful relationship? And you know, my husband is this, and my husband is that, and my husband doesn't do this. And he said, stop. Imagine what it is that you really want. Focus on what it would feel like if you had that already. Stop blaming the person who came into your life because he fits with you, and just start focusing on where you'd like to be. Imagine your extended, more beautiful future. And then don't tell the universe which face to put on it. Just be in the fulfilled future. And so I did that diligently. Now, Don, who told me that little secret, became my husband. And together we then practiced dreaming our life up. Because this one technique worked and I got a beautiful relationship, I started thinking about anything and everything I could possibly want to become in this lifetime. Now this is the trick, and I know I cringe when I hear other people tell me their wild dreams, because I go like, oh my God, who's going to put the butter on the table? There is a part of me that's very practical. So although I had these dreams and I pretended having the results coming into my life, I also made sure I had a stable basis to stand on. And I chose to do what I wanted to do and have my vision, but I also made sure I had the income to stand on until I took the next greater leap of faith, all the while creating greater and greater visions. My husband and I used the imagination of having millions of dollars at our disposal and what we would do. And we realized that although we thought of the money as a bridge to get to where we want to go, in the end, everything we had started imagining started happening. We hadn't gotten our millions yet, but the things that we wanted to see manifest started manifesting. So I encourage you to maybe pretend for a while to imagine what it would be like if you had unlimited funds, or a magical voice in your universe that simply allowed you to say yes to your dreams, and start dreaming of what you really like to experience. Now, I came across the Living from Vision course when I was 28 and started regularly practicing the techniques. And for 15 years, every morning, and most of the time every evening, Don, my husband, and I practiced the audio tapes, and we did the weekly exercises. We first did the course ourselves, then we taught to other people, then I trained people how to train other people. And in the end, I took on this vision of becoming whoever I really wanted to become. But it took practice to get there. I had to create the inner experience, the blueprint first. Then something interesting started happening. I started feeling like, okay, I'm reading this information, I need to move that way. And we went to India to look to live in India. We were invited by an ashram to help co-teach there. And in the process, while teaching a seminar in Bali, a person whose seminar center we were using at the time said, I don't think India is such a good idea. I think you should stay in Bali. Why don't you look at a house here? Which is the very house I'm talking to you from. A big vision of going to India and a small sentence of, why don't you look at a different house? And me looking at it and getting this is my house. This is where I am designed to be, allowed the universe to start then communicating back and forth through other methods. We had sensitized ourselves not to just create what we wanted, but to co-create with the inner voice, with God's voice, with guidance from a higher dimension, and tuning into other parts of ourselves that were ahead in the future, talking to us now. Now, at one point, Don and I actually intended to find a time travel machine. That was in 1986. And we intended to have a party for our future selves to arrive. And we literally were ready to celebrate, but we wanted a physical time travel machine. Shortly thereafter, I met a person, Dr. Vern Wolf, who taught us that time travel is an inner process. We are the time travel machines. We are the time shifters. Everything you dream about and are capable of holding any length of time with an intensified degree of consciousness and focus is what will happen. You yourself will walk yourself into the universe that you can preconceive, so you become the navigator of your own time machine. You can apply this focus backwards, what we do in the learning from problems or the holographic imaging technique, and you can apply it into the future. But soon your subtle dimensions, your subtle body starts becoming larger and larger to where the future starts talking to you into your now. And when you start listening, giving the universe your visions, the universe can give its answers to you. And you start dancing with what is true and right. Dancing to a higher tune. And that's the journey I'd like to invite you on. A journey to become more of who you truly are. A journey of tapping into your higher consciousness, harnessing the power of your consciousness, learning tools of how to clean up what isn't working and how to pre-create what it is you want to experience, so you become a co-creator with a divine part of yourself and the universe. Thank you very much for having listened this far, and I am very excited to have you on this journey. I hope to be able to assist you. Take advantage of any of the offers we have. Several of them are free of charge for you to find out if this is for you. Thank you very much for joining us today. Bye-bye.